Local programming on KRWG made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Fronteras, Changing America. I'm Anthony Moreno. In an effort to reach a new generation of federal land stewards, the Obama administration rolled out a new program last year to gear up for the centennial anniversary of the National Park Service this year. The program is called Every Kid in a Park, and here to tell us more about the program and other efforts to reach youth and a more diverse group of federal land and water goers is McKinney Briske with the Bureau of Land Management. McKinney, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Now, I'd like to start off, this program, it was rolled out towards the end of last year to gear up for the centennial anniversary of the National Park Service. Could you tell us a little bit about Every Kid in a Park? What's the mission and how it is being implemented?
So Every Kid in a Park is an initiative by President Obama to reach children at a critical age to get them outdoors and active and enjoying the federal lands that we have for them and for the public in general, and appreciate the lands that we have under the Federal Land Management Agency. So that's Bureau of Land Management, the National Park Service, the U.S. Forest Service, and the Bureau of Reclamation, and also the Fish and Wildlife Services.
Now, you said critical age. There is a specific age group that they're gearing this program at. Is that correct?
Yeah, studies have shown that if kids get exposed to the great outdoors by the time they're 10, 11 years old, they're much more likely to pursue a lifelong love of the outdoors and stewardship of the outdoors.
Now, to further target students, it's fourth grade students across the country have a really great opportunity. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, so Every Kid in a Park targets fourth graders. Specifically fourth graders, but because of homeschooled children and just different variations of learning opportunities, it's actually 9 through 11-year-olds, but you're only allowed to get it once. So if you're a 9-year-old that's homeschooled, you can't get it when you're 10-year-old or 11-year-old. And basically the idea with Every Kid in a Park Pass is you go online to everykidinapark.gov. You do a program where you plan a trip to a national park or a Bureau of Land Management site or one of the other federal land management agency sites. And then at the end, you can print out your voucher, and you can either take your voucher to a Bureau of Land Management site or National Park Service site or a site that has the passes and turn that voucher in for the pass. Now, you have to be the fourth grade student. The parent can't take it without the fourth grade student because they're the ones that have to turn it in, and they're the VIPs of the national federal lands this summer.
So it's also a good opportunity, though, for parents and families who are going along with the student. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the Every Kid in a Park Pass will get the child and their family into the national park, or national BLM site, recreation fee site, anywhere. And it's basically the child and a carload of family members.
Okay, so now the way you mentioned it is the program is set up also for not just public school students or students in school, but also homeschool students, so they could go through this program on the website. Is it pretty easy to navigate?
It's an easy site to do. When it was launched September 1st, we went into schools and printed out a couple of grade levels worth of passes for the students. And basically the student or the child goes on to the everykidinapark.gov, does the activities, which is a 3-step type activity where they plan their own adventure in a federal site. And then at the end they print out their voucher, and that's all they have to do. They can use that voucher to get into the federal fee areas, or they can go and turn it in for the plastic pass.
Oh, the fancy plastic pass.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'd like to hear a little bit more about locally some of the efforts that are going on to reach fourth grade students. You serve as the youth lead for the entire state of New Mexico with the Bureau of Land Management. What are some of the programs this year to honor the anniversary and to get the local fourth graders out into the federal lands and waters? What are some of the things that you've been able to do?
Yeah, so right now I'm the acting youth lead for BLM New Mexico, but my normal job is the outdoor recreation planner for both Organ Mountain Desert Peaks National Monument and Prehistoric Trackways National Monument, which are both managed by the BLM and surround Las Cruces. So when we first heard about this pass, we got very excited at our local office because really all BLM lands surround Las Cruces, and it's such an opportunity for students and kids to get outside, enjoy the BLM lands, and also use the area as a educational learning experience because of the resources we have. So the first thing we did was September 1st, go into the classrooms, make students aware of their opportunities, try to reach them and say, hey, you are the VIPs this year. Let's get your pass printed, let's get you outdoors. But also we applied for a couple of grants, one through the National Parks Foundation, a transportation grant, and that enabled us to work with Gadsden and Las Cruces Public Schools to get, I think we had 10 fourth grade, the whole entire fourth grade of 10 elementary schools out to Dripping Springs through this transportation grant.
Oh, wow.
And then we also received money to host a day camp this summer for 13 fourth grade girls. And the focus on this day camp is getting out to the special areas in southern New Mexico where, the federal lands around here that they can go visit with their families and they can use for an entire lifetime. So we're going to go to, the first day we're going to do a Gary Springs campground. The second day, Prehistoric Trackways National Monument in the Robledos. The third day, we're actually going to travel and we're going to go to Fort Stanton Snowy River National Conservation Area. And the BLM over there, the Roswell office, is going to work with us to present about the cave. And then the fourth day, we're going to White Sands National Monument, and then we're going to go to Lincoln National Forest. And the last day, we'll end it at Dripping Springs, showing them what they can do in their backyard. And during this whole week, we're going to take local women scientists and professionals and have them come do activities with the girls to inspire them that they not only can enjoy their public lands, but they can use it to have a lifelong learning experience and a career in the science field or other environmental type careers.
That really sounds like a good opportunity. I mean, is there a specific demographic that you're trying to reach to get the students out there?
We chose Sunrise Elementary School, and because we worked with Las Cruces Public Schools to identify a school that the girls might not otherwise have the opportunity to do day camps, and we chose that location so the girls could come and meet us at the school, and then we could go from there. Our idea is to kind of, just basically expose fourth graders, and we chose girls because if you look at the demographics of who works in public sectors and science and stuff like that, the minority, it tends to be less opportunities, it seems, for females. So we just wanted to kind of emphasize to these girls all the diverse opportunities that they have. And so that's why we're collecting all of these different locals that have wonderful careers and to work with the girls and expose them to all the opportunities that they have at their fingertips.
Speaking of diversity, it seems like the Every Kid in a Park program is is it aiming to get a more diverse group, the next generation, which is going to be more diverse, familiar with the parks? Maybe one day they will dream of being a park ranger or working with federal lands and waters?
President Obama said something, and I can't remember the exact quote, but the Every Kid in a Park is is designed to show that every kid in every place can have the opportunity to explore the outdoors, and that this is their land, that this is everybody's land. And basically we just want to show everybody that they can get out and explore and, you know, enjoy the public lands and the treasures that we have here in America.
You know, one of the things I'd like to talk a little bit more about, working with local students. You've hosted students from the Gadsden Independent School District and also Las Cruces Public Schools. Before they go out there, you work with the school districts to go into the classrooms and educate them on what they're going to see?
Yeah, so working with schools and doing field trips, I found, and this is part of the program too, but I really found it's much more helpful if you go in to the schools before we go on the field trip. Because first of all, you want to do your safety messages about how to handle yourself in the outdoors and how to stay safe and what to wear and all of that stuff. But also, if you hone in on the learning opportunities there in the classroom, then you go out into the field and you expose them hands-on to what they have the opportunity to learn about, whether it's the ecosystem, fossils, the geology, just being outside. And then, if possible, go back and have them share with you what they learned on the field trip. All three of those steps will just kind of make the field trip all that much more powerful.
So did you select like a different topic that you wanted to educate the students on about what they would be encountering once they step foot into the environment?
So we kind of tried to focus in on the things they were learning about in the classroom, because what we really want to do is use our public lands as kind of a platform to show the students in real life what their teachers are teaching in the classroom, and also help out with the standardized tests and things like that, because really they're taking these standardized tests, but when they're exposed to it in the real life, it kind of hones in on what they're learning on paper. So we focused on biomes, rock cycles, just different things that fourth graders were focusing on.
Well, I guess if especially here at Dripping Springs and the Oregon National the Monument, and you really get to see a lot about the rock cycle right there. I know we had an opportunity to be out there with the Gadsden Independent School District, and the students were well versed on the rock cycle, and they could really tell us a lot about what they were seeing. How important is that to really kind of have that? Is it almost like three tier of education? It seems to be working.
Yeah, so there's the concepts of the rock cycles, and then there's the actual rock cycles that you can go out and you can touch the rock, you can see the mountain range, you can learn about all the different processes that go into creating these mountain ranges and the Mesilla Valley in general, because the Organ Mountain Desert Peaks, it has the Organ Mountains, it has the Doñanas, it has the Robledos, the Las Uvas, and then down the Potrillos. And so through all of those different mountain ranges, you can find every part of the rock cycle. So it's just an incredible resource that we have for an outdoor classroom right here in Las Cruces.
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine there's a lot of folks that maybe live in the area that don't realize, the rock cycle or what they're looking at. I guess you could really see the volcanic impact of what we have around us. Could you explain a little bit more about that, in detail?
Yeah, so, we have the Organ Mountains, which, were kind of the result of a volcanic activity. They got uplifted and pushed and tilted, and then, there's the sedimentary part that's the lower portion of the Organ Mountains that you see on the where the more vegetation grows and the peaks aren't necessarily. And then there's also a tilting action for the Organ Mountains. And then the Doñanas were kind of the same type of time period of volcanic activity. And then you've got the Robledos, which were long time ago the coast of an inland Permian Sea. And then they got pushed up all through the process of the Rio Grande Rift separating. And so along the Discovery Arroyo alone and the prehistoric trackways, there's 13 different fault lines just up there. And then you go down south to the Potrillos, and you've got the Kilbourne Hole, which is a Mars volcano, and you've got Hunt's Hole, and you've got Aden Lava Flow. I mean, it's just incredible the different geological resources alone we have around here, not even counting the ecological and paleontological and all of the different things that go into these two national monuments.
Now, when you host students at Dripping Springs, I noticed you had one day where you said you brought out, was it around 300 students? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we hosted Archaeology Day up in the Dripping Springs, and we brought in a lot of different agencies. The New Mexico Historical Preservation Office, we got different BLM staff, just a kind of multitude of partners to do hands-on archaeological education activities like using atlatls to throw spears and create cordage, and just have hands-on activities to kind of engage the children in archaeology and the study of the past, because we need to engage the generations, both the parents and the students and the kids, to learn about the past so that they protect it and that they value it. And by valuing the past, they're also valuing our history and their history.
Now, one of the things that students have done through this program is take a hike at Dripping Springs right here outside of Las Cruces to a popular place at Dripping Springs Natural Area, La Cueva. Could you tell us a little bit about what they see there and what they experienced at the cave?
Yeah, so we take them on a hike to La Cueva and go through what's called the Arroyo Path, which basically has a kind of a riparian type ecosystem, because it's right along the Ice Canyon, which is a water run all the way from Dripping Springs, so there's a lot of different vegetation. And then we go up to La Cueva, which is more desert shrub type of thing with the rock shelter. And the rock shelter has been inhabited for thousands of years, and lots of cultural deposits around there. And then also it's famous because the hermit lived there in the 1860s.
Well, everybody's heard, I think, a little bit about that story. There's variations of it. Could you share with us what historians and archaeologists have said about the hermit that lived there?
So the hermit was an interesting individual, and he's kind of a really important historical figure in Mesilla history. If you go to the old Mesilla cemetery, you can actually find him buried there. He was an Italian that traveled across Europe, and then he traveled across South America all on foot, and then to Cuba, and from Cuba he rode his boat to Florida, and then from Florida walked to Kansas, and from Kansas to northern New Mexico. And the Hermit's Peak in northern New Mexico near Las Vegas is actually named after him. And then he came down to Mesilla, and he made some friends in Mesilla and stayed in the cave in La Cueva. But his friends in Mesilla were worried about him because they thought the mountains were dangerous, and so they told him to light a fire every Friday night at the mouth of La Cueva, and you could actually see it from Mesilla back then because the air was so clear. And so every Friday night he lit a fire, and then one Friday night they didn't see the fire. And so a group of local Messians went to La Cueva to investigate, and they found that he had been murdered. And to this day we still don't know what happened to him.
Nobody knows. That's one of those unsolved murder mysteries, I guess.
No, but if you go to the Gadsden Museum in Mesilla, she actually, I think her name's Mary Bird, who runs it, has relics of the hermit because one of her great-grandfathers was a part of the rescue efforts to go find the hermit.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Now, one of the things the students also, I believe, saw while they're encountering La Cueva was rock art that's available that you could see there. at Dripping Springs at La Cueva. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, so it's pretty faded. There's a figure, an anthropomorphic figure, it means man-like figure, kind of holding what we believe is an atlatl. On the left side, if you're looking at La Cueva, he's on the left side. But it's red, monochrome type figure, but we don't know much about it, how old it is. They did do de-stretching is kind of the term for rock art specialists use for a photographic thing that they have, and you could see a lot more of the figure.
Is that when they kind of dark or really
make
it bright?
Yeah, they pick up the colors, and he was a lot more apparent when they did that. But rock art is a resource that is all around us. We just recently, Las Cruces hosted the American Rock Art Research, ARARA, American Rock Art Research Association, and their focus was going out to multiple sites in the Organ Mountain Desert Peaks in this area to look at the rock art. So it attracted experts from all over the country just because we have such fabulous rock art sites around here.
Wow, that's fascinating. One of the other things we found just up there at La Cueva was Flintstones, like a number of them just around the area that one can find.
Yeah, there is some lithic scatter, as lithic scatters when they break the rocks to make tools. But the important thing to remember when people visit the site is that you can look at it, but leave it where it is, because it's a really important tool for archaeologists to tell about the past. And if people take it and put it on their shelves at home, it kind of loses all of its story, and it loses its kind of clues into solving the mysteries of the past.
I know there's been a lot of wear and tear on the area, the environment. I know maybe perhaps pollution that's really kind of caused a lot of things that you could see up there to kind of fade away. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Do you mean the
like the art?
The rock art? Yeah, that particular panel is facing right at the sun, and so I'm not surprised it's kind of faded away. I find it impressive that it's held on for so long, and I don't know how old it is, but if it is holding an atlatl, then that's kind of indicative of an archaic period, which is 3,000 to 5,000 years ago. Now, when I've talked to the local archaeologists, they think it's much earlier than that, but the atlatl does indicate it could be much older.
Wow. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about what are some of the challenges of facing folks, from around the region to really get out to the nearby federal lands to explore and become acquainted with them.
One of the things that I've kind of encountered is that people just aren't aware of the opportunities. They don't realize that the mountains surrounding them are their mountain ranges, that they can access them. Particularly with Dripping Springs, I've encountered a lot of people that aren't even aware that it's an area you can go on a beautiful hike, full of history and wonderful things. Also, I think another thing is kind of fear of the outdoors. It seems that a lot of people think, something's going to happen. Maybe they're scared of snakes or spiders or scorpions, I'm not sure. And that's a real thing to be aware of when you're outdoors. But I think that's the important part about getting these kids out, and every kid in a park, is exposing them to the outdoors so they don't have that fear and that they feel comfortable. Because one of our biggest challenges for the Bureau of Land Management is managing the amount of land we do. For Las Cruces District alone, there's 5 million acres that we manage. Wow. And a lot of the issues that we face is like urban interfaces like Las Cruces, where you go out to the desert, you see a lot of dumping, you see kind of misuse of maybe OHVs where people drive off trails, just don't keep care of the land the way they could. And so by reaching children and showing them that this is their land and that they're the stewards of it and that they need to keep care of it, I think that's the best way to ensure that our public lands are valued and kept care of.
Is there a challenge, within the BLM or here locally to really connect with people on a cultural level? Is there language barriers or anything that exists?
I think in some communities Spanish is the dominant language. So I think we really need to make an effort to maybe offer some programs in Spanish, and also make sure that our signage is in both languages.
Are there bilingual hikes or anything like that going on?
We have not instituted that yet, but that would be something we'd really like to do. We had a couple interns this summer that were both bilingual, and I think they made a couple efforts to offer hikes but didn't get much of an attendance. But that's something that I think we need to build on in the future and really focus on.
Well, and we just have about a little over a minute left, but transportation seems to be like an issue here. Even though the mountains are nearby, there's still a transportation challenge.
Yeah. For schools, that's why we're trying to pursue the transportation grants, because school buses are very expensive. For people, I think we need to figure out some sort of way to make sure that we have access to the local areas like the Oregon Mountains. And how we do that, I think, will be through the planning process and working with local community groups and just trying to figure out ways to get more people outdoors.
Well, it seems like there's an opportunity now that you have the Oregon Mountains Desert Peaks National Monument. The road is completely paved, and construction going on. We just have a little short time left, but have you seen an increase in attendance since the monument's been dedicated?
Yes, I think that we have estimated that there's been about a 25% jump in attendance, and just since the road has been semi-paved, it's not completely done, we've seen a big jump. And one of the interesting parts is that I didn't think about is we've seen a lot more bicyclers and motorcycles. And that's one thing I just didn't occur to me that would happen when we paved it, but it makes sense.
I see. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, but I want to thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you.
And we want to thank you for joining us for Fronteras at Changing America. I'm Anthony Moreno.